remember to buy a copy of your favorite books from the cheeky merchants. If we don't have it, we'll source it for you, but we'll definitely find the book for you.
Hello, cheeky native. It's 2026, baby, and we are still around. Hey, Dr. Slay.
Hey, Advocates Mkhorwane, how you doing? Wanaka Dubai.
I wonder whether what dirty December. Please, girl, dirty December.
Hey, yeah, yes, and singing I caught singing
Dirty December,
I need
dirty.
for a clean January because I'm home, okay, and I'm ready to be reading.
So today is really exciting. I feel very privileged for us to have this conversation because, we've kind of been involved in this universe for a long time. We've had conversations with the authors about all reiterations of this book, and it kind of feels like we're coming to a close of this universe. And it's a little sad because, I like some of the characters. Some of them, they're dead to me, but I think that I really enjoyed the characters. And so, without further ado, today we have the lovely, wonderful Zibu Sithole, who released her fabulous debut novel, The Thing with Zola, in 2013, followed by the popular sequel, I Do, Don't I, 2024. Zibu is a published ghostwriter and a journalist with more than 10 years of experience writing for television, radio, as well as print and digital media. She lives in Johannesburg with her son. And now we speak about the final installation of the Zola universe, Love, Zola. Welcome, Zibu.
Thank you so much for having me again.
We are so excited for today's conversation. Zibu, I don't know if I want to fight you or hug you. I'm working through very complex feelings because, wow, sister, wow, okay? Why? I think that's my first question. It's just, why?
Because love is complicated, guys. It's complicated. It can't be easy. Fairy tales are different now to what they were before. So we need to keep moving with the times.
Zibu, thank you so much. I echo Alma's sentiment about whether I want to fight or hug you because I have very complex feelings. And I want to start by talking about Zola's evolution, right? When we meet Zola in kind of The Thing with Zola, she appears to be very self-centered and stubborn, to the person that we now encounter in Love, Zola. And I wanted to speak a little bit about how has her ability to care for others and navigate this kind of lows and highs in a career changed your perspective or even Zola's perspective about what a happy ending looks like. Because as you know, I'm always ready to fight you about happy endings. And this particular ending, I remember you saying to me, Tlochi, I hope you think it's a happy ending. It's not the one that I wanted, but I wanted to speak about the idea of happy endings, particularly thinking about the evolution of Zola from book 1 to now.
So in the first book, Zola was pretty selfish because, when you're young and you think of being goal-oriented, you think of it as a linear one-way path. You can't look at anything else. You just need to get what you're here for. And that's where Zola was. But by the time we got to the third book, she's grown up a lot, had a different experience of life, because also getting what you want all the time makes you very selfish. And Zola she learned the lesson Ogushe should have learned. When she didn't get what she wanted, it humbled her, but not to the point of destroying her drive, destroying her ambition. She still had all of that, but she had to learn that you need people. People are important too. It's not the Zola show. The world is not here for her. So she learned an important lesson. And on the happy ending, it relates very much to her evolution as a person, as a woman living in a world that wants to dictate what you need to achieve, who you need to be, how you need to do it, and the order your life needs to progress in. And the happy ending is happy for me because it is a lesson that women need to learn. It's an important feminist message that we hide in romance, because being in love and loving a person doesn't have to be that you cater to them up to the point where you forget yourself and forget the things you want and the things you are trying to get. Because giving Mbali the happily ever after would have been sacrificing Zola's happily ever after.
I think that's such an interesting point, and I think it ties in very well into the next question that I'd have, and that's about the reality of commitments. I think, we get accused often as a generation, particularly as millennials, of having interesting ideas around commitment and what commitment looks like. And women always accuse men of not wanting to commit, and men do the same for women. But in this book, see that Zola and Mbali have the relationship really being tested, right? They have the initial infatuation, it's beautiful, they love each other, there's the dream proposal, But when it really comes down to the reality of what it means to take on this person, take on their baggage, take on their family, take on their own ideals, we see them flounder a little bit when it comes to having to define what commitment means to themselves as it relates to their unfinished business, their unresolved issues, their personal baggage. And so I wanted to speak a little bit about why you wrote their own experiences of commitments in the way that you did. I know that she's working about a feminist message, but I think there's also an interesting commentary on the arts of commitment in 2026.
Because it's complicated, right? I mean, you don't meet the perfect man, get married, and have kids, because we are people who come from different homes. We have different goals. We have different ideas of what happiness is. And I think it would have been a bit of a cop-out to have the fairy tale when the book is very much rooted in the reality of current day South Africa. So making it simple where the environment I've put the characters is not simple would have been a cop-out, and it would have felt like we are running away from reality a little bit too much. We're kind of stretching the bounds of believability and missing out on an important moment in the story, because I really feel like a part of me was born to be a teacher. I just didn't get the patience. So talking to people, starting conversations, having a bit of an edutainment moment is always part of the storytelling for me.
Why have you chosen fiction as a way to do the storytelling? We often find that people think of books like Love Zola as kind of books that are light and easy. People are like, oh, such a light and easy read. But I think there are really deep and profound messages that you find in these books. And I wanted to know why the avenue for you, why was it important for you to convey these live lessons, if we are to call it that, in a fictionalized story?
I think it has a lot to do with escaping my own reality. Like, the years in journalism were very traumatic for me. It was, especially the whole pandemic situation, that was a lot for me. But I also got to see how people consume messages. If I tell you a story of somebody next door, you're more likely to say that could never be me. But if it is a character you can relate to, a story you can follow from the beginning to the end, you're more likely to accept the message. And in a relaxed atmosphere, like a romance book, where we're not knocking facts at you, knocking statistics at you, you are relaxed, you are entertained, you are receptive to what is happening and how the characters feel, and you can sort of empathize more. It's very strange, but you can sort of empathize more with a fictional character than you would with a stranger that exists somewhere that is far away from you and your situation.
I don't know now if it's just because I'm a parent, but I'm so intrigued by parents and child relationships, right? Particularly the relationships that we are told are sacrosanct. So the relationship between a daughter and a mother, the relationship between a father and a son often feels very sacrosanct and feels like something that is almost beyond the point of criticism, right? It's like men will tell you, oh, I finally understand my father, when they just want to act foolish. But I'm thinking about Elias and Mbali, right? Because Mbali loves and admires his father, but he never ever wants to be like him. And I think about what a complicated relation, what it must be like to navigate such a complicated relationship, and how that then permeates and colors the ways in which you navigate your own relationships, right? So you see this person potentially be a good father to you, but be a terrible partner to your mother. And that then, of course, adds layers and layers to these complications, because humans are multifaceted. So I wanted to talk a little bit about writing such a complicated relationship between a father and a son, but also what it then meant for Mbali to have to navigate that relationship in his personal relationships with the women that he loves?
I think the relationship between Mbali and Elias is complicated because Mbali doesn't necessarily love his father as much as he admires his father's success. Because what Mbali admires about Elias is not his ability to be a father or a husband. It's rather his ability to make this luxurious life for him and his mother out of nothing. What complicates it is the fact that Elias wants to be a father when he feels like it, and he wants to give parental advice and he wants to interfere in Mbali's life as a father would or should. But when Mbali needs that from him and he's just not in the mood, he pulls back. So writing that was very difficult for me because I am a daddy's girl. I idolize my father, and I did not have that kind of complicated relationship with him. My father passed when I was 15, so he didn't see me grow up. I didn't have that adult to adult conversation that we see Mbali and Elias having. But I have seen men like Elias move around the world. I have seen the damage they do to their sons emotionally. And I think that relationship kind of shows why Mbali is so emotionally stunted, because that is one of his greatest character flaws throughout the series. He's emotionally stunted because he is a pillar for his mother, a substitute husband in a way. And that stems from Elias's willingly being absent as an emotional partner to his wife and as a father to his son. So it's kind of how intergenerationally we see absent fatherism, because not all absent fathers are physically not there. Elias is physically there, but he's not fathering. So he's an absent father, and his relationship with Mbali and Mbali's relationship with the world is impacted by that.
That's an interesting point. That we can actually just speak to a little bit, and that's around the emotional stunting, because my goodness, I think in the previous books, the parents were just problematic. I think we all had a moment to sit and just be like, "Ooh, abazali," and in this book, it's a "Ooh, abantwana," because wow, 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 wow. There's just so much, and I think it's so interesting, Zibu, that you're talking about the emotional stunting, because I think it takes me to the next part that I'm really interested in, and that's around the stories that people tell themselves, which then become a part of who they think their character is, right? And I think you make interesting commentary around that in the book. So, Zola has told herself that she is the oldest daughter, which also then carries particular pressures, right? So she's told herself that she's the person that always has to have it together. She has to always have it figured out. But then this inability to communicate feelings of helplessness or being unsure or changing your mind then permeates into how she navigates her relationship with Umbandi, for example. So she keeps quiet about the things that she wants or doesn't want until the absolute last moments, right? Or she sits with all of these resentments. Mbali is unable to just actually articulate the things that he doesn't want or the things that he wants, and actually, or stand up and defend Zola in moments that are really pivotal in the book, right? Where you're just like, if you let your mother speak to her like this, of course, then this sets the tone forever. But Zozo, my girl Zozo, is just not doing well in this book, right? Because Zozo has told herself a particular story. So she's told herself a story about how there are certain things that she doesn't deserve, and Vusani is almost one of those things that she doesn't deserve. And because she feels undeserving, she almost ruins her life. So I'm interested in the ways in which your characters navigate the particular narratives that they build for themselves, and how much of that is actually built around their self-talk. Like how much of who you think you are is predicated on what the people around you have told you about yourself, that then becomes the story that you tell yourself, which then somehow also influences the decisions that you make.
With Uzozo, I think she's a very interesting example of that, because when you look at her upbringing, you look at Mina's attitude towards nice things, and you look at the life she had accepted in the first two books. Tabo was never good enough for Uzozo, but she wouldn't see that because, one, he's her first love, and two, she's looking at her background, she's looking at the way her mother speaks to her and how the world treats her. So she's put herself in this box. I mean, the fact that she was willing to sacrifice a big moment for herself, a big achievement for herself in the second book because Utabo didn't support it. It speaks volumes about how she sees herself, how she values herself, and what she imagines she's capable of. And it is interesting and intentional that she ends up with a man like Uvusani, who is on the outside the perfect man. He is virtuous, babumfundisi, look, he is everything. And even the congregants are shocked that he ends up with a woman like Uzozo. But he loves her in a way that is a lesson to her about her worth, her value. And while he strives to get her to see herself the way he sees her, he almost loses her because it's so difficult to break out of a toxic relationship with yourself. It is difficult. People struggle with it, especially when it's enforced by toxic relationships with the closest people to you, the people you love, whose opinions you value.
It's interesting when we think about kind of the relationships and commitments in the book. One thing that really strikes me, and I think that you try to uncover in the book, is this idea of the unsaid issues. And we see this in Zozo's marriage. We see this between Zola and Mbali. We also see it between the parental kind of relationships. And I wanted to speak a little bit about that, right? Kind of these quiet reservations and unresolved issues. And the one question is why it was important for you to bring that to the fore. But the other question is like, in an age of love conquers all, do you think that love really does conquer all in the face of these unsaid quiet reservations?
Sure. Love does not conquer all. I mean, I am a lover girl through and through. And communication, teachable spirit, and a willingness to grow will conquer all. Love on its own simply isn't enough. And I think that's the biggest message in this book, that love is not enough to overcome absolutely everything. You need to communicate, you need to grow. And the white elephants in every single room in this book are a threat to love winning. And it is important to me, especially, to learn to communicate because I have so much in common with everyone when it comes to not saying what you need and what you want in time. You want to speak when it's almost too late. Like, actually, I didn't want to go there. Actually, I could have done this. Or I actually don't want to go like 5 minutes before the car leaves. I do that a lot. And it comes with wanting to be loved. You want these people to love you. You want them to accept you. You don't want to cause problems. And yeah, it's detrimental to everyone's relationship. And hopefully we see that. Hopefully it's clear enough in what happens between Uzola and Mbali that keeping quiet and accepting things in an effort to try and be more palatable, more acceptable, it helps no one in the end.
The character that I think frustrated me the most, besides these two lovebirds who just could not get it together, was Oguhle. Oguhle is just like, what is Oguhle's problem? That Oguhle's parents say something particularly interesting in the book, right? No, I'm laughing because for real, like, Oguhle, get a grip, honestly. Like,
Get a life. Like, seriously, get a life, Okuhle.
no, but you know what it is? It's that, like, I'm so interested I'm so interested in tenacity and grit and what it means to be a child who is protected to the point of being deprived of the ability to be resilient. And I think that Oguhle's father makes an interesting comment when he speaks about how in wanting things to be perfect from for Oguhle, they've almost deprived her of the opportunity to be a human being who can bounce back, who can read the room, because it's clear, like, Mbali doesn't want her. Even if Zola was not in the picture, Mbali would still not want her. And for Oguhle, it just doesn't click. It's like this inability to read the room because you have this picture in your head and this is what things should be. And whether the reality matches or doesn't, that's not anyone's problem. And you will make everyone miserable until the reality matches. And I want to speak a little bit about Oguhle because I think Oguhle is a case study in parenting, right? It's like Oguhle is easy to blame and to think of as like a brat and this and that. But Oguhle is the product of her environment. And so I wanted to speak a little bit about like why Oguhle is such a frustrating character and why you wrote her to be such a frustrating character, but also a little bit about her parents and why we have an Oguhle, right? Like, who are these people? Do they exist? And how do we not raise them?
They definitely exist. P squared is definitely out there. And a lot of us millennial parents are Ogushe's parents because I think it's bred into us where you always want to give your children the best. You always want to protect them. And where you can, you want to step in. A teacher spoke to your child in a way you don't like, and the child was crying when they came home. You're rushing to the school. And you're depriving them of real life experiences and the ability to resolve conflict on their own. I'm saying that, and it sounds judgmental, but I will be the first one at the school trust if I hear that my child is crying. So it's kind of their fault, but not. They had good intentions, but even with the best intentions, you can raise a little monster. And Ogushe is what happens when your little monster grows up, becomes successful, has money, and wants this doll that is Umbali, that she cannot have because unfortunately he doesn't want her. She is a bit of a monster, but she's a monster we can empathize with. Hopefully, I can.
I mean, only you, Zibu. I just want to say only you. For me, personally, Okuhla, I don't want to see her in the street because it's on face. Like, I got Mona Okuhle. I just think that
Rest of development, I think that's what frustrates me, right? Is this like commitment to just being the worst possible version of yourself. So like in the first book, we're all like, yo, Obuhle, but towards the end, you start thinking, okay. Then she meets Lulu. I'm like, okay, Obuhle, I don't know what's going on. I'm thinking, is she having her come to Jesus moment? What is going on? But even then, you see how she bends and contorts to be something that she's not. So I kind of empathize with her in the second book. In the third book, I'm just like, but what is this emotional regression? Like, what is this commitment to being the worst version of yourself? Because the people at the office are going through it because she's also just like a problem, Everybody is going through it. And that's what fascinates me is like this arrested development that like, despite everything at your disposal, Ogushe just is like, no, this is me. I want to be horrible. Thanks.
We're taking a short break.
Also, Okutle struggles with the idea of not being chosen, right? Because as you said, her dad says, in giving you everything, we were afraid to let you live, right? So Okutle has always gone through life thinking like, I'm going to have everything I want, and I get it. And then here comes Mbali, right? And Mbali's like, well, girl, I'm what you can't have. And then she sees who Mbali has chosen. And for her, I think it boggles her mind to be like, Zola? Hey, M-I-D-A, not Zola, And for me, I'm trying to kind of figure out, there's a part in the book where we are at the negotiations and Okuhle is there. And I'm like, Mugela ono o, ufunani la. Because she ain't a friend, like ufunani la. But it's also this idea of like getting what she wants. She was just like, well, I'm just going to go. I'm her boss and I know Mbali and, all of that. And Zibu, I can't stand Ogushe.
No, and Ogushe wants so desperately to be liked.
I can't stand her.
She wants to be liked. That's why she's at the Lobola negotiations, because she wants to be a girl's girl. She wants to be seen as someone who has let go of the idea of Mbali. She's moved on. She's so mature. She's so perfect. She's so pretty. She's so smart. When in reality, that's not who she is. And Zozo especially can see right through her.
Do you know, I want to say, my favorite girl, Zozo. And that's why I want to fight you, Zibu. Because I love Zozo. And Zozo, we've seen what Zozo has been through with that man. Like, Zozo and Anasa Khunukal, happy ending.
You and
like,
Zozo
did she need to go through this?
Do better, because how are you loving Zozo? You and Zozo just need your own come to Jesus moments, because
Zozo, I love her. I mean, I think she does trashy things because she should not have done what she did. But Tiamtanda Uzozo, man.
I think for me, Tobile is my favorite, and I'll tell you why. Because Tobile is an unlikable woman, right? Tobile is the one woman in the book who is unafraid to just be unlikable and go against the grain. And I think some of that is also generational, right? So I think when I think of Uzozo and like Zola and Bali and all, it's millennials, right? So there are particular ways in which we've been socialized. I think we were one of the last generations to really have like people pleasing just ingrained so deeply in us. And I think it informs so much of how we move through the world. And we have all these strict ideas of like appropriateness and how we should interact, but we're also a very resentful generation because we're also a generation that doesn't know how to adequately communicate what we want, right? Because Tobile is very clear. Tobile doesn't want to go to school when she doesn't want to go to school, okay? And like she's very clear on that. Tobile also, there are things that she just doesn't want to do, and she doesn't carry the weight of other people's expectations, right? So we can say Tobile is the youngest. Zola has paved the way and done particular things, and so there's a freedom that comes with not being the first in your family to do certain things. Sure, we can give it to her. But Tobile is also not particularly likable. Tobile is not a likable woman. She doesn't care about being likable. She doesn't even care if her own family likes her. And I think that is a very interesting way to be. Tobile is free in the ways that you think Zozo is.
Zibu, I mean, you're the one tell us what your feelings are around. And I think your observations are correct, right? I think that there is some socialization about millennials of people pleasing. You see how Zozo continuously has that kind of back and forth with everyone in her life, right? So Zozo wants everyone to be happy. But unfortunately, she has to make decisions that make other people unhappy, right? And Tobile was just like, guys, I'm out. Like kishap kitlalibon. Do you think it's like a Gen Z thing to be like, hey guys, like wow, like it's my laugh, bro? And so I wanted to speak a little about that, right? Like, there's also this contrast that you're trying to make about like millennials in many ways are socialized to be people pleasers, even to their own detriment. And we see this with Okuhle, we see this with Mbali, we see this with Zozo. And Tobile is just like, my girl, I'm a be by myself and it don't matter. And she genuinely seems to be happy.
It is a generational thing. It's definitely a generational thing. Tobile is a 2K through and through. Her decision making, why she makes the decisions, and how she reacts to everyone's reaction to the decisions she makes. She is living for herself. And I think it is a progression, right, in how people interact. We've got our parents' generation. They were very different in ways that millennials don't understand. And these Gen Zs are what millennials always thought we were. We thought we were trailblazing. We thought we were kicking the doors open and starting new things. But when you see people actually doing it, it is amazing. Zola thought she was the one who was the star of the family. She was doing things differently by going to study overseas. And Utobile was like, forget studying. I'm just going. I'm living my life because there's not just one way of doing things. And it's important to let children be. And Nomsebenzi learned that the hard way because she didn't let Tobile be. And Tobile just was anyway, without permission. And I love her too. I love Tobile. She's not my favorite, like Zozo and Zola and Oguhle, because Tobile, there are times when I want to shake her. I want to shake Utobile a little bit because of the parts of me that are restrained. You know, her freedom and how she just lives her life. It's triggering. Yes, we get triggered by how free these kids are. It's very triggering because we want that for ourselves, you know, but we just can't. We're not built to go for it.
So intrigued by Umtunzi, guys. Okay, so like I think that we have very particular ideas of like just hate male relationships, okay, and friendships, right? So they often get criticized for being very superficial and I think a lot of the commentary is because we're sitting outside the club, right? So a lot of our commentaries is because of observation, etc. But I think that Umbali and Umtunzi have a very interesting friendship, and I'm particularly drawn to the fact that Mbali, towards the end of the book, is the one that actually gets what we would have thought of as a happy ending. So all the things that I imagine for Mbali, Tunzi is the one that has them. And there is just an interesting commentary about who you choose to give the picket fence and the 2.4 children and the dog and the stable love life to. And I want to talk a little bit about that because I thought that was an interesting plot twist.
I love Umtunzi and I love the bromance between Umtunzi and Umbali because, like you said, heterosexual men are known to be distant. They don't build those bonds with each other. Whereas the rest of us are going to the bathroom with each other. We are talking about absolutely everything. We are discussing, we are debriefing, we're getting everyone's input on everything. And Umtunzi refused to fit the cishet mold, you know? He loves Umbali loudly. And even though there are elements of his personality that other people would describe as parasitic, he is Mbali's day one. He stands by Umbali and Mbali accepts him. You know, there's that, you're an only child, I'm an only child. We're both men navigating this world where we're not quite sure where we fit in, and they bond together. I love that relationship. I wish it for every man on the planet. You need that friend. And seeing Umtunzi grow and become everything we all thought Umbali should have been speaks to the politics of deserving. So because Tunzi is not the typical Prince Charming, he doesn't have the white horse, he doesn't have the backing, the financial backing of a father like Elias. He is the struggling friend, the hanger-on. We assume that he doesn't have a life of his own. He doesn't have areas of his life where he's winning. And that is so far from the truth, because people we might view as failures have areas in their lives where they're winning. I mean, it could be a drinking competition, but they're winning. Everyone is winning somewhere in their life. And it was important for me specifically to see Mtunzi win, because he is a representation of lots of men in our generation, where he straddled two worlds in a way that is more extreme to what Umbali and Zola did. Because Umtunzi doesn't come from a privileged background, yet he grew up surrounded by the privilege of others in the private schools. He watched Abombali Nabo Oguhle from a distance. You know, he was right there, close enough to see, but not close enough to have those things for himself. So seeing him win is important for people like me, people like the Mtunzis across the street from me, and South Africans in general, because most of us do find ourselves in a position where we are surrounded by privileges that are not ours.
The trilogy has come to a close. I think you've been very purposeful in avoiding kind of this idea of trauma that's associated with Blackness. And you've tried really in this series to focus on gentle, soft love, right? Not to say that the gentle, soft love doesn't come with its own issues as we've discussed. But I wanted to know why it was important for you to show this kind of Black love without the centrality of suffering.
Because it's 2026, and I think being a strong Black woman is so outdated. Nobody wants to be a strong Black woman. And as a Black woman, it would kind of be daft for me to write strong Black women as something to aspire to. We should not be aspiring to suffering. We should not be tolerating the whole he beats me because he loves me thing. Not now. It's like that's so Soul City. It's so long ago when things like that were acceptable. It's not acceptable. And we need to progress. We need to kind of move on in our way of thinking, in our way of seeing the genre of romance. Because Black love has been depicted as struggle love for so long. And it's not that. It shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be something we read about and romanticize and think of as nice. I strongly feel that a sad story is not a love story. If there's going to be poverty porn, there's going to be GBV, somebody's going to be beaten. We can't have an abuser ending up with their victim and calling that love. So it is, I don't know, the more I talk about it, the more I feel like I wrote this book for me.
So with that having been said, let's talk about this ending, Zibu, because what a wow. I'm on the fence. I'm trying to decide if I'm angry or happy with you, because I was talking to a friend and I was saying, so I don't have a daughter, but if I did, I think the one rule I would have insisted on was that before she ever got married or ever tied herself down, I would insist that she lives alone. And that would be the rules, that you have lived alone, because I think there's just something important for young women to have had that experience. And I think you see Zola sort of being deprived of that experience. She moves from someone's care to someone else's care to, do you know what I mean? She leaves home, she goes and she gets into this very serious relationship that takes up so much of her time, her energy. She comes home to regroup and she gets into another serious relationship, right? So it's like you just move from one relationship to another, and you almost feel like there is an arrested development, or there is a part of Zola that doesn't know what it means to just be by yourself, right? So be by yourself without the attachments of a partner or something of the sort. But then in the end, and people are listening to this would have already read the book, but like in the end, I'm just not sure about whether this is a happy ending or not, because inevitably the moments where she and Umbali then reconnect, right? And I want to talk a little bit about this ending, right? And why that reconnection happens, and whether you consider that to be a happy ending. I'm on the fence, Zibu, so I'm still deciding if I'm like happy or angry with you. I'm not sure yet.
Let me convince you. It's a happy ending because now it will be a relationship on their own terms. You know, Umbali has his independence. He's supposed to have done his self-discovery while he was living in that penthouse apartment of his. And now Uzola is at a point where she has her own things. She's got the job she wants. She's got her own space and time to develop her own personality, her own likes. Because, you know, when you live with someone else, the food you cook, the food you eat is not necessarily the food you like. So you could find that Uzola is not even sure what her favorite food is because she's never been in a position where she is making all the decisions over food. Small things like that, they count towards the kind of person you become as you walk into a serious relationship or a marriage situation. So it's a happy ending in that whatever happens with Uzola Nombali after the book within the Zola verse that we cannot see is on kind of an equal footing. You know, Uzola has her own money. She's got her own home. She's got her own car. She doesn't need anything from Umbali. She doesn't need to be picked up. She doesn't. It's so important. I think it is so liberating to go into a relationship needing absolutely nothing and only being there because it's what you want. No, after the disappointments, now Umbali knows where Uzola stands. It is the perfect grounds to start a healthy relationship. So it's happy in that way.
I'm not team love back. I just want to put it out there into the Zola universe. I think they need to find other people. It was great. I think that it's a beautiful story. Zola needs to find someone else. Mbali, it was great. Thank you. Yeah. I'm on the fence. Letlokonolo is laughing because Letlokonolo is like a consummate romantic, but I think that there is a...
It's not even that. It's just you're like, I'm not team love beg. Like, whatever happens in Bali, Zola, don't go back to Bali. Find something else.
You know what it is? It's because I think so much of the book is
the
also...
real gag is if Lesedi divorces Gunter and then she gets back with Gunter, that would be the real plot twist.
I'm going to come to Zibu's house if that happens. Like, do you know what it is? I think that so much of the book has been about like the act of deserving and the courage to know that whatever you deserve, if you feel like the space that you're in is not serving you, you can step out and you will find the things that serve you and that make you happy and that you don't have to bend over backwards. So Zozo is such a great example of that, right? It's like you even see Unomsebenzi, you just realize she doesn't have to always be difficult and Unomsebenzi grows up so much in this book, right? And it's weird to think of like a parent growing up, but Unomsebenzi does a lot of growing in this book. And so maybe that's, I must preface and say that I just feel like maybe that's why I'm not a fan of like Love Back, because it also ties to this idea that like you deserve a love that also then requires all of these trials and tribulations. And I think when Umbali keeps quiet when his mother treats Uzola in the way that he does, that was tickets for me. I was like, let it go. Close that chapter. Thank you, Mbali. You are just, there's a lot of growing that both of them have. So maybe I'm just a little bit, maybe I'm a bit biased, but I see it and I hear what you're saying. But I think you've done 50% of convincing me. Maybe a fourth book will convince me.
Zibu, as we close the Zola verse, I want to say that I feel like Alma, right, for different reasons. I would have loved for Zola to have had a happier ending. I don't know what that looks like, whether it's with Mbali or something else, but I wanted her to have a happier ending.
Spoiler
But I
alert,
suppose
it's
it's
not with
interesting to think
Umbali.
about.
It's not with Ali. Spoiler alert.
But I think it is a happy ending in this sense, right? That ultimately, perhaps the best happy ending is Zola choosing herself. I find that in keeping with the themes about people pleasing, it's really hard for us to choose ourselves, right? So we often stay in places where we are not appreciated, where we are taken for granted, where we have to essentially fight to be loved. And perhaps maybe the lesson of Love Zola is love Zola, right? You have to love yourself first. Now that we're out of the kind of the Zola verse, what is next for Zibu?
There's a lot actually that I am working on. This year, I am hyper focused on trying to, even if it's just for a year, be a full-time author, even if it is just for a year, because life is so short to be living a life you don't want. I'm becoming a Gen Z for this year, so I will be writing full-time. I've started writing. I'm actually close to finishing my first project of the year, and 2026 has already been a year. It has been a year. It is nonfiction, and I am co-writing I'm co-writing 2 projects this year, and it's an interesting thing writing with someone else, because when I was writing the Zola series, it was my way, my ideas, how I see things, me. And it is such a great opportunity to grow and learn.
I love that.
I
You'll
love
be
that. And
working
it's
well with
exciting.
others.
We're
I love
really
that.
proud of you and we are rooting for you all the time, Zibu. And I think that you can tell that at Tlokonon and I absolutely loved this series. We feel so deeply about so many of these characters. Some of them I still want to strangle. A lot of them I still want to hug. Some of them I want to just block and ban from everywhere. But I think that that's also just a testament to the quality of the writing and of the story that we can feel so heavily invested in it. So thank you to you. This is a testament to you and to the amazing work that you've done. And we absolutely cannot wait to see how your story evolves as well as you do all of these projects. But I also can't wait to see the Zola series on Netflix. So I'm putting it out there. I will come back to this when it has its first show one of these days. We'll come back to this moment. But congratulations, and we absolutely loved the trilogy. I am sad to say goodbye to Zola because Zola and I have a complicated relationship. But this really is just a testament to the amazing work that you did with this trilogy.
Thank you so much for having me for a third time. It is one of the greatest compliments ever to convince 2 very intelligent people to have feelings about people I made up in my head is one of the greatest compliments I have ever received. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Zibu. And again, Cheeky Natives, please go out there and grab a copy of Love Zola, because Love Zola is really, really a great ending to a complicated time with Umbali, Zola, Okuth, and Nomsebenzi. All these characters that we met in book 1, we finally say goodbye to them. And I'm sad, I won't lie. And I hope that you pick up the book and maybe you will share the feelings that you have with us until we see Zibu again. Cheeky Natives, don't forget, if you want to buy a copy of the books, you have to let us know. And okay, until next time, Cheeky Natives, continue reading. Reading is important.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Cheeky Natives. Don't forget to subscribe, review, and rate the podcast on all your streaming platforms.